Hi, I'm Graham.
And I'm Tanner.
We are Crystal Street Comics, and welcome back to Thoughts from Crystal Street. We've been away for a couple of weeks. PopCon was lots of fun for us. So if you were out at PopCon and you said hi to us, we're saying hi back. How you been? Been bored without us? I know. As far as movie news or things we normally kind of talk about on Thoughts from Crystal Street, there were two smaller mentions that we're going to talk about real quick, and then we're going to go into a main thought idea that we've shared with you a couple times, but I thought that maybe me and Tannen would go a little bit more in depth with it this week. So let's start off with Elektra. Tannen, tell us about Elektra.
Yeah, so Elodie Young, or Young, we're going to bring a picture of probably her name because, yeah, she has been cast as Elektra for the second season of Daredevil. And the only thing that we know her from is the ninja in training from G.I. Joe Retaliation.
And that's okay. That was, I kind of like the G.I. Joe movies. They're a guilty little pleasure of mine. They're decent popcorn movies. And I liked her in the second one. And she does look a little bit Greek. She's actually French, I guess.
Yeah.
When I was looking her up. But I'm okay with this casting. It looks really good. And now you've got Elektra and Daredevil and Punisher in season 2. And that's going to be awesome.
They're not making it hard to watch it.
No, that they are not. So that's a really cool addition. But again, that's kind of all there is to say. She's been cast, and we don't know a lot about her. So that's why that's not our main thought this week from Crystal Street. Second little thought from Crystal Street this week is the announcement. Well, not really announcement, but rumor, and really cool rumor if true, that Donnie Yen might be in Star Wars Episode 8. Now, if you don't know who he is starred in the Ip Man franchise, which are Hong Kong action movies. And if you've never watched them, you really should.
You are missing out on some phenomenal fight scenes.
There's a fight in the first Ip Man where he fights 10 guys. And it's one of the most brutal and amazing fight scenes. It's top 3 in all of cinema for me. So the fact that he could be involved in Star Wars in some capacity, that's freaking cool. Even cooler is the thought that maybe he gets a lightsaber in his hand. And like I was saying to Tannen, if that's the case, there aren't enough Jedi and or Stormtroopers to stop him with a lightsaber in his hand. So.
Yeah, I mean, if he is remotely the character that Ip Man was, then I assume it's only the Vong that can possibly stop him then.
And even then, I think it's going to take a lot of Vong. So you don't need no force to beat you up. But again, that's just a rumor. We don't know if it's true. So,
yeah.
So I thought for our main thought this week, we would talk about something we have mentioned in several episodes of Thoughts from Crystal Street, and that is the fact that me and Tannen think that TV is a much better medium for superheroes than cinematic movies. And a lot of this comes from the fact that comic books, by their very nature, are episodic. So it just makes more sense because there's so much content out there. You can fill TV shows with what's out there for your main characters. I mean, even the sub characters like Daredevil, that could be a 10-season show, and they barely scratch the surface of the books.
Yeah, I mean, there's very few characters that people want to, the majority of people want to see that haven't been around for at least 60 years. So, and throughout those 60 years, chances are there have been enough things that have happened with those characters that should be said. So, yeah, in movies, you're going to get
2.5 hours.
Yeah. And some movies have done, like the first Iron Man, they did a good job with, setting up who the character is, but you're just forced to miss out on a lot of ancillary characters, characters that give a little bit more to the content and substance of that comic book that isn't worth giving time to when you're stuck with 2.5 hours. Kind of like Daredevil. the Wesley character
Hmm.
was a really good character. Um, and I think if they had to tell that whole story in 2 hours as opposed to the season, we would have gotten a lot less of him.
Yeah, good supporting characters. There's also the fact that some stories take time to tell, and uh, I think a classic example of this is Spider-Man 3, and its really poor decision to bring Venom into that. Venom is a character that not only could easily hold his own movie, he could easily hold several movies as a main villain. And to shoehorn him in the way that they did is almost kind of a second thought was really terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible is the best word I can use for it. I mean, there there are still parts I like about Spider-Man 3. I thought Sandman was great, but that whole movie could have just been Sandman and Harry Osborn, and that would have been enough. But so I think because you're only getting these movies once every 2 years, 3 years in development, you feel like you have to rush out what the fans want to see. And in rushing it out there, they don't get developed as well. And also along that same line of thoughts, a character who I've always loved from Spider-Man is Carnage. To tell a Carnage story properly, you have to introduce Venom
Right.
and what Venom is, and then you can introduce Carnage, and then to even get to my favorite story, Maximum Carnage, you have to introduce Carnage, have him be caught, and then have his second spree come around. And in movies, that's 4 or 5 movies. You don't have the time for that. Your actors are going to get too old. They're not going to want to stay under contract for that long, and it's just it's too hard. Uh, it's just almost undoable, quite frankly.
Yeah. I would say it's like movies as far as comic books go. I think the best format would be so you have the Daredevil series, or let's say you had a Punisher series, or you had kind of like Agents of Shield
Mm-hmm.
series. If you had series for all of these characters, then you make a movie for what it could actually be done. You could do Long Halloween, Batman. That's a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I would say Christopher Nolan did a good job with Batman. Um, Batman's a little bit different than especially Marvel characters because Bruce Wayne pretty much is Batman.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Bruce Wayne parts when he's out of the mask, even in the comic books, that's kind of glossed over now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But things like your graphic novels, those I can understand that you're
Yeah.
standalone graphic novels,
Mm-hmm.
but you still need
You need.
you need all of the background content that
Mhm.
leads up to those graphic novels. Identity Crisis in the DC series
Yeah.
is a really good graphic novel, but you need a lot of characters to make that work.
Yeah.
You can't just make that movie and hope that it will have the same type of reverence as the book did. And I think that's where a lot of movie studios they come into the understanding it's like, yeah, we have a comic book, here's the story we can do. And they're looking at it more as a book, where most books are, yeah, you open it, there's the beginning. When you close it at the end, then it's done. And there are parts of that 300, 400 page book that don't necessarily need to be in a movie.
Right.
Um, so, and so just off the top of my head, you pick some, I would say Stephen King because he's the first author that came to mind, but they refuse to make really good movies unless they're Shawshank and Green Mile of his. So yeah, I mean, okay, Dean Koontz, which is a very pop author, but his books, for the most part, he doesn't write sequels to his books.
Right.
I can only think of one, the Frankenstein series that had 2 and 3, but you have a Dean Koontz book.
Mm-hmm.
That's its story.
Right.
It's not after year 2014 to 2015 of 12 comic books at the end of December. January is going to pick up right where December left off.
Right.
The story's done, and I think that's where movie studios have a misunderstanding of what comic books are. They just see books. Yeah, we've been turning books into movies for years now. Comic book is in the title, so it
Yeah.
should work.
But they're breathing things because they're constantly evolving, they're constantly changing, they're constantly bringing in characters and out characters, and then bringing characters back in. And I think that's another problem with movies is sometimes they're so afraid to bring characters back, especially villains. They feel like this villain has been used, we don't need to use him again, um, so let's just shove him away or kill him, like the Joker in the first Batman movie. Good job, Tim Burton. um, and the problem is that in the comic books, we expect these villains to come back with cool new schemes, or or something that will totally surprise us, like Riddler in the Hush line.
Yeah.
Where hey, this guy was a joke. Now he's really badass. Um, and I look at Captain Cold as a great example of this. There's a villain that if he's in a movie, after 2 hours we'd be done with him, and we'd want more Captain Cold. But because of the Flash series, we're going to get more Captain Cold.
Yeah.
And I think as comic book fans, it's just we crave more of the things we really love, and TV shows can give that to us much easier than movies can.
Yeah, I mean, and just because right now we have really good examples of good superhero TV shows on once the summer is over.
Yeah.
And they are, Flash is one of the best because Flash turned Captain Cold into a worthwhile villain again. Well, to start with, he was never a worthwhile villain until this series. And a movie that he would have been the sidekick of the real villain.
Yeah.
If he was even in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Daredevil's Kingpin just gets caught.
Yeah.
At the end, they didn't kill him off. You can naturally assume if the show keeps getting picked up, Kingpin will be back.
Yeah.
And he'll actually then be the Kingpin.
Yeah.
He'll just go full blown criminal as opposed to trying to be legitimate.
Yeah.
Legitimate criminal. And now I liked in Arrow, Deathstroke came back, but then they really messed him up. And I don't blame that actor for doing what he did.
Yeah.
He should have never gotten beaten by female Arrow. Thea. Yeah. But the character will probably be back. They'll probably just recast Slade. He's too big a character, even though he doesn't really need to be. I mean, I hope they bring him back when they do the whole Justice League. That stuff. Because that's where he belongs. But again, these are things that movies have a hard time doing. Even to the point where, Joker is captured at the end of Dark Knight. And now I'm perfectly fine just for reverence to Heath Ledger. They didn't even want to mention him. They didn't want to reference him.
Right.
But if they actually stuck with that Batman, the Christopher Nolan's Batman, you could naturally assume that Joker, would have to come back.
Yeah.
He is just captured. And I even like that you don't really ever see Ra's al Ghul dying in the first one. It's assumed, but there's not a body laying there.
Yeah.
And it's Ra's al Ghul. He's hard to kill.
He's a bastard.
But if you did this in TV shows,
we're assuming
you
at some point.
Next season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, he's gonna pop up again. In movies, if you do that, you're gonna have to remind people who the character was. So, TV shows just lend themselves better to storytelling.
Yeah, it's just a better medium for this. And I understand, you don't get the budget of Avengers movies if you do TV. S.H.I.E.L.D. looks noticeably not as high budgeted as an Avengers movie. That being said, I'd still rather get a good story and maybe a slightly less produced special effect.
Right.
I just think there's something to that weekly format that just is much better for comic book telling.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't make movies. I'm
No.
saying all of these characters should have either their own Netflix or, I mean, if you just worked with the television studios,
Mm,
so you have all of these individual, you have your, and some of them you don't need. You don't necessarily need an Iron Man TV show
right.
or a Captain America TV show, but it does work really well with
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye would make a great TV show.
Yeah, yeah, Hawkeye would be phenomenal. Or you did a Hawkeye and Natasha.
Yeah.
Um,
TV show.
you had them working their shield, spy magic over there somewhere, and then you also have Daredevil, and you have 6 TV shows, and then when a movie is made, so in your span between your 2 years, 3 years in between your movies,
Mm-hmm.
you have content, and you still have your big budget movie,
Right.
but it has these actors that have been playing these roles. So I'm looking most forward. I'm looking forward to the most. There we go. To seeing the actor that plays Daredevil in the
Yeah.
MCU.
Yeah.
I think because I actually do know more about him
Yeah.
than any of the other characters. And they've made a hell of a lot of MCU movies. But
Yeah.
I know more about him now and his actual close friends
Yeah.
and the things that he does for what he's trying to accomplish.
Well, I mean, when you think about it this way, Daredevil was 13 episodes,
Mm-hmm.
about 40 minutes each, 45 minutes.
Yep.
So, give or take, we've had, let's call it a 9 to 10 hours of Daredevil at this point. We have had 1, 2, 3 Avengers, maybe 12 hours of Iron Man since what, 2008? I do know more about Daredevil in one season than I know about Iron Man from nearly 7 years of him being on the screen.
Yeah.
And so I'm telling you, Marvel, DC, stick to your TV. That's the place to go. DC, I don't know why you think you need another Flash. Seriously, you've got a good one on television.
Yeah. Yes, and again, fine with you making movies as long as your actual all of your substance of the character is given in the TV show.
Yeah.
So then when you go to make your movie, you can have your big action, big villain that comes out, and you don't need to explain where this person came from to help these people fight that thing.
Yeah.
Now it's just a collaboration, and then you go back to your story.
If you had a Hulk TV show, maybe we wouldn't wonder why the hell he didn't show up in Civil War. Because you could have explained to us he's in South Korea helping somebody and couldn't get there.
Yeah. So if you do explain that in Civil War, honestly, that's going to be just time wasted from the actual movie for me. Because really, somebody could just stare straight at the camera and say, and that's enough.
And
because that's really as good as you are doing if you come up with any exposition on why he's not there. He is your strongest weapon you have, and he's not around.
So see, we won't get upset with that if you give us TV shows explaining that. See, so see, you'll cut down on your nerd rage by so much percentage if you just give us all what we want.
Oh, yeah. It's like going through the last Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, how they blend that into the MCU as it happens.
Mm-hmm.
But think of how good that is, and that could be happening with, your 8 TV shows of your characters blended in with your movies, and it's working so well with S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't know why you refuse to let it work with anything else.
Make that money.
Yeah, because the studios, with how successful the MCU has been, and DC is going to always just be working to get there as well, there aren't studios that aren't going to at least try.
Yeah.
They're going to give you first season money.
Yeah.
And if it gets its ratings, they're going to give you second seasons.
Lots.
Or now with Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime,
Yeah.
PlayStation Network, if they
get their stuff
get their
together.
head out of their ass.
Yeah.
There are enough formats that I guarantee you that these people will give you your money.
Yeah.
Because they don't necessarily need those first ratings. They just need, we got an uptick of 4% that signed on to
subscribe. So, we paid off what we gave you to make this show in a month.
Yeah.
Just in case, has anybody else done the math? $10 a month, what, 40 million subscribers, whatever it is on Netflix right now, however millions of subscribers, they make money.
Yeah, that they're not hurting to the point that, I mean, it's already, I read some rumored thing where Netflix is actually just killing real TV.
Yeah.
It's like on real TV, we're probably going to go back to, where on prime time it is nothing but reality shows because the writers actually want to work for shows that require writing.
Yeah.
The downside is TV might turn into the writer's strike era of TV. But then you just have to, but also the upside is if that does happen, you could just drop your entire cable subscription.
That's true.
And it would cost you $30 to have Hulu, Netflix, and almost all the other ones.
That is true.
And you're getting the good shows, the shows that writers write for.
And I think that we summed up that topic and several others. I do want to throw one thing out before we leave. We warned you this was coming. A machine killed a man in Germany.
Quit being afraid of zombies.
Robots. Bender B. Rodriguez will be the end of us all. It's happening. Well, I'm Graham.
And I'm Tana.
Those were our thoughts. We'll see you next time.